Whatever you say, Tara, we're getting close.
And do it. Yeah. Like they do. Yeah.
We're good?
Oh, yeah.
And then it's just taken care of. Like, we don't have anything on our read.
Good afternoon. Welcome to this council meeting for the municipality of Dutton Dunwich. It is October 23, 2024. It is 5 p.m. and I'll call this meeting to order. Tara, please.
Moved by Loveland, seconded by Pemberton, that the meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Dutton Dunwich opens at 5 p.m. All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you. I would remind council of any declaration of pecuniary interest. I see none. The minutes from the October 9th meeting were distributed in the agenda package. Is there any errors or omissions? I see no concerns. They will be adopted as distributed to council. Clerk Tara, are there any items not listed on the agenda?
There are none.
Okay. That brings us to a delegation scheduled for 5 p.m. and it's Daniel Siegel. He wants to talk to us about municipal residential development of attainable housing funded through a mix of municipal bonds and federal provincial funding. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you for welcoming me into your council today. My name is Daniel Siegel. I'm a Tarion builder who's been doing laneway houses and garden suites in Toronto and Hamilton since 2020. And I come to you today to discuss the topic of attainable home ownership in Ontario as well as in your municipality. There's a housing continuum. So the upper tier municipality is responsible for everything from transitional housing right up to rent geared to income housing. And then attainable housing is just to the right of that continuum and generally falls outside the scope of housing providers. Now, traditionally, this is up to the private sector to build this type of housing, attainable housing. And in this presentation, when I talk about attainable housing, what I'm talking about is a price tag. So Bill C-23, Bill C-23, the Building Faster Act in Ontario hopes to build a bunch of houses. And they came up with a table that said that every municipality has what they call an affordable purchase price of a detached house. And in your municipality, that's $380,000. What I hope to do here is work with municipalities to build houses at or below that price point. Historically, this type of housing has only been built twice in Canadian history. It was built in the 1920s to the 1940s, so that's wartime housing. And then it was built again in the 1980s. And every other period, excluding those, people like myself have been buying these attainable houses and adding extra units, putting in extra additions, and the units are no longer attainable. So in the past, we've, as a society, agreed that we need protection over certain things like sensitive habitats. And we set up land trusts to protect that. These days, an attainable house is a similarly endangered species in our province. And that's, in my opinion, one of the main sources of the housing crisis that we have at the moment. So what I'm coming to you, council, today is to discuss a model and a potential solution to the problems that we're facing and seeing across the province, not just in your municipality. And so that's kind of the backbone of where I'm coming from. I've gone before probably somewhere around 50. I've done 50 of these delegations across the province, but I've reached out to about 3/4 of the municipalities in the province to bring up this issue because I think it's not very well understood. And I feel like I've got a great model that I'd like to share and hopefully encourage some municipalities to get on board with coming up with compact communities. And a compact community is basically an assortment of these attainable housing units all together in a lot of land. It may be serviced or unserviced. And the idea here is let's create some supply of these housings. Now, historically, the type of housing that I'm discussing was highly financed through government low-cost loans to create these. These days, when I go to a bank and I propose this type of development, my interest rate is way too high. It doesn't make any sense. It kills the project almost immediately. I know that the Bank of Canada just cut rates by 0.5% today, which is welcome news. But frankly, trying to get a developer like myself to build these units only really works with low-cost financing and at scale. So my goal here is to build 1,000 of these units in 2025, working with municipalities like yourselves to come up with a fantastic plan that we could deploy rapidly to meet the housing needs across the province. Now, you might be saying, Daniel, you're in Toronto. How the hell are you going to build in Dutton? That's 3 hours away. And the way we're going to do this is with prefabricated units. And for those who are not familiar, I put in a unit last week. We delivered it to site last Wednesday, and it's pretty much almost done today. So the fact, like the mere thought of developing a house ready for occupancy in a week is outlandish to most, but I literally did that last week. Granted, that was in Etobicoke, it wasn't in Dutton. The technology exists to create housing affordably, but what we lack is the pipeline of orders to be able to reach the capacity needed to lower the cost of housing for people. And so I come to you today with a plan. I presented it to other councils as well. Granted, it's been quite a bit polished since I first reached out in September to do this delegation, when at the time I thought, let's do some, let's talk about municipal debt offerings and draft resolutions. Well, frankly, at this point, those are nice, but frankly, they won't do anything. It's what I need to make these projects happen is, first of all, I need a municipality who believes that to create these units, we have to do something about the bylaws. So what we need are small lot sizes, like 30 by 90 feet. We have to figure out how to do decentralized wastewater treatment so that one house and one sewage treatment, one septic field is maybe not the answer. Maybe we have to have 3 houses sharing one septic field. I'm looking for land. I'm looking for financial support when it comes to doing roads, streetlights, bringing power to the site. And I'm also looking for an NDA, a mutual non-disclosure agreement, because frankly, I think my model is so good, and granted that this is a public forum, and granted the municipalities that have expressed interest in doing so have information maybe they don't want to share to everyone in the world. So for this to happen, we need to have an element of trust, and we also have to make sure that when we tell each other something, that is held within our confidence. So I put a lot of time and effort into this model, and I think it's so scalable that frankly I'm afraid other people might go ahead and copy it, monetizing it in a direction that I don't think it should be monetized. So with that, I want to come to you this evening with a solution that's rapidly deployed, low risk, and can be replicated pretty much anywhere in the province. And I'm so confident that this is the case. If you're interested in talking further, I could show you a model south of the border where they've accomplished this so effectively that Habitat for Humanity no longer builds attainable houses in their community. Now, that sounds crazy. What's even crazier is that they've been doing this for 8 years. So they have the bylaws that could easily be copied and pasted to make these projects happen. And all I'm asking for from this delegation is that it be forwarded to staff so that we can have a more productive conversation, less of a sales meeting, and more of the nuts and bolts of how this could work, so that together, through cooperation, we could do a private-public partnership to hopefully provide your community with attainable home ownership units. So with that, I'm almost at my time limit here. So I want to thank you for letting me present my model. and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Daniel. A lot of information there. Thank you for that presentation. Does
Sure.
council have any questions at this time? Councillor,
Thank you, Daniel, for the presentation. Models similar to this have crossed my mind many times, is whether they would work in rural communities such as Dutton and other smaller communities, because I do feel there's a need for a model like this, or developers that would have interest in pursuing this type of building. Um, I guess the one question is, would the municipality have to provide the land? What's your objective on that side of it? You discussed a lot of, where you would like help would be roads and lighting and wastewater. I guess understanding that part of it there to keep the cost down in the actual build itself. But is land required to make this work? And also, would you consider working with another developer to scale it in that manner?
So to your first question, land is not necessary. Well, let me rephrase that. It doesn't, when you ask yourself, how could these units be acquired? There's really three main streams you could go down. You could do a plan of subdivision and chop up each unit and have its own title. You could do a condominium corporation, or you could do a land lease. Now, as far as attainable units go, the thing that supports that the most is a land lease. So if you do have land and you're willing to do such a project, it's really interesting to go down the path of setting up a land trust. Now, if you don't have land, frankly, sometimes it just comes down to what the financials look like. When I run my numbers based on everything, I need to cherry pick the 5 best municipalities based off of what they're bringing to the table to be able to make this project a slam dunk. And so if I have a few municipalities and I can only pick 5 because I'm only one person, I'm going to pick the ones where it's a lot easier and less risky financially for me to undertake this project. A lot of municipalities say, Dan, how much equity are you going to have in the game? It's challenging for a 41-year-old who has 2 kids to have much equity given the current climate in general. But banks are not interested in lending money. So the answer is kind of to your first question. To your second question, I would absolutely love another developer to be able to take my ideas and models and run with it. My concern is that I've put in time and effort to develop this model, and if they're able to take the model and just apply it willy-nilly and not compensate me, I have a problem with that. So absolutely, I'd love it, but the environment needs to be right for that to happen. Does that answer your question?
Just one more question.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, when you say scale, what do you mean by scale? And let's say Dutton Dunwich was interested.
Yeah,
What would the scale look like?
The scale in my mind is that your community has as of 2021, about 3,500 residents. Maybe we'll call it 5,000 right now. To assess the actual need for attainable housing on any given beautiful Saturday afternoon of people looking for houses, it's uncertain what that number is. And so as part of this proposal is that a risk-adjusted construction of these units would entail some flexibility as to being able to scale up and scale down to meet the demand in your community. And to do so, it doesn't make sense to build 1,000 units just in Dutton Dunwich with the expectation that they will sell. What makes a little bit more sense is to go in smaller increments. Now, what that means from a larger developer than myself is likely they'll look at the project and say, this is too small potatoes for me to be bothering with this. And so scaling, in my opinion, comes down to meeting the demand without expending too much overhead to meet that rough demand, if that makes any sense.
Okay, Councillor Pemberton, you had a question.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, Daniel. I have lots of technical questions because of my background, so we won't get into that today. But I, from what you're discussing, it sounds to me, and I guess I just want clarification. Essentially, you're asking the municipality to fund your project at a low interest loan without any investment directly from you.
So first of all, any partner you need to work with needs to have skin in the game. So I'm not saying I will have no skin in the game. The second thing I would say to that is I would love to answer every single one of your questions offline. This is a public forum, and there's only so much information I could provide on a public forum without getting into IP territory. The other issue is that historically this type of housing has been constructed with low cost housing. With low cost of financing. And the reason for that is if my ceiling price is 380, I have to keep my costs down everywhere. So frankly, if a developer bank wants to give me a rate of 13% or 9%, and each one of these units might have an internal rate of return of 10%, there's not enough meat on the bone for me to take the risk as a developer to enter into this agreement. So any way you slice it, for these projects to work, you need access to low-cost debt. Does it have to come directly from the municipality? I would say absolutely not. I know that operating and capital budgets at the municipal level are super thin, and your goal is to keep the roads paved. So I don't necessarily think that the best way to finance this is through operating or capital budgets. Going back to my draft resolution, the lowest cost of debt in the province is municipal debt, followed by Infrastructure Ontario money. So the winner here is the person who's able to secure the lowest cost of debt on these projects, because historically that's how they were able to flourish.
Okay, 10 minutes really doesn't give you enough time to answer all our questions, Daniel, and I recognize that. But thank you for the presentation. It piqued some interest with myself for sure. And I think the best way to handle this is for council to reach out to you and get some of them questions answered somewhere down the road, if that's fair.
I think that's the best possible outcome as far as I see it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. We have another delegation, and the Dutton District Nonprofit Housing. Which one of you, or all three or four, are coming forward?
Do I need that?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Duncan McComb. I'm the building chairman for the building committee of the third build there that we're doing up for the seniors, 33 unit. Anyways, as some of you might know, we had just started taking trees down today, so we're starting to go at it. Anyways, coming to the sewer hookup, water, and that, we got a $263,000 sewer charge and a $16,000 water hookup charge, and that, which we theoretically by the bylaws we got to pay when hookup. We haven't got the money now till we get our first mortgage draw, and that could be anywhere from November 28th to December 16th. If it's another week, we're not be in the holidays, so it could be very wild first of the year where we get that first draw. What I'm proposing to council, if they would go for it, is the 263 plus 16 is 279,000. We would pay half at first draw of the mortgage and the other half at first occupancy. And it's going to be about a 14-month build, so we're looking December 25, January 26 to have ready to have occupancy. So it would help us a lot if we could defer. I'm not asking for money. I'm just asking for to defer the payments and that. You'll get your money. Just defer the payments for us to get it going.
Okay. I think we were aware of your requests coming forward, so it's not a shock or a surprise to any of council. Duncan, so we'll get back to you.
Yep.
But
No more questions? I can.
anyone care to speak to it? Go
Do
ahead.
we want to pass a resolution and get on with it? Or?
What we'll do is we'll probably deal with it yet before the meeting's over. Tara does not have a resolution prepared, but it'll give her an opportunity to do so. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you for coming in.
Well, that's what, hour and a half?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll continue without our CAO for a couple of minutes. She just had something she had to speak to the Lions about. Number 8 on the agenda, we have a committee of adjustment. Clerk Tara, if you would get us started, please.
Moved by Pemberton, seconded by Drewler, that the regular meeting end to sit as a committee of adjustment hearing to hear application file MV05/24 filed by Amanda Purdue at 5:22 p.m. All in favor? And that's carried. And moved by Loveland, seconded by Pemberton, that the meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for Minor Variance application file MV05/24 filed by Amanda Purdue opens at 5:22 p.m. All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you. I will call this committee of adjustment hearing to order. This application for a minor variance pursuant to section 45(1) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended, is required for the following reasons. To request relief from section 4.1 to permit an accessory structure to be 1, built closer to the exterior lot line than the minimum distance required for the main building on the lot. 2, located in the exterior side yard in the case of a corner lot. And 3, built 0.9 meters from the exterior lot line where 1 meter is required. The subject lands are located at 1 Allen Court. Does any member of council have a disclosure of interest concerning the proposals? I see none. Clerk Tara, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
A sign was not posted on the subject property prior to the October 11th, 2024 deadline, but notices were mailed to the property owners within 60 meters of the subject property prior to the October 10th, 2024 deadline.
Okay, I'll give you time. Okay. At this time, I'll introduce our planner, Tracy, to present her report.
Thank you.
Floor is yours, Tracy.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the members of the committee. So an application for minor variance was submitted. The applicant had commenced construction of an accessory structure or shed in the exterior side yard of the subject property. The purpose of the application is now to allow for permission for the shed to remain. The circulation was sent around to neighbors 60 meters from the subject property and to commenting agencies and municipal departments. One municipal department that I want to bring to your attention is the building department. It was noted that the applicant needs to confirm the dimensions between the house and that side lot line to the north, as well as revising the dimensions. It shows 3 feet setback from the detached shed to the street line instead of the property line. And there was some concerns about lot coverage. So the concern is that the CBO has asked for this information to be just double checked by an Ontario land surveyor. Not a new survey being prepared, but just the stakes exposed. And that just hasn't been done yet. With respect to the 4 tests of a minor variance, it does conform with the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. Relief doesn't cause any concerns. There is a photo included in my staff report that shows a picture of the shed. It is tucked in behind and then fenced around it. And the characteristic of the area does remain, so the relief is considered minor. So administration is recommending that the minor variance be approved. However, the notice was not posted on the deadline. It's the 10 days prior to the public meeting set out by the Planning Act, and the measurements are in question. So council does have the ability to defer the application until measurements are confirmed, and then we would repost and resend out notices to the neighbors. But once a decision is final, just to remind you that there is a appeal opportunity, and again, third-party appeals from neighbors are no longer allowed. So I'm happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you for that report. And now I'd ask, is the owner present? Do you have anything to add at this time?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, come on up.
Thank you.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Robert Kirsten.
Okay.
I'm not sure why it says it's less than 3 feet off of the street. It's actually 3.5 feet off the property line is where, like, because I went by the property, the steel property stakes that were originally there. And the fence runs long, and then I'm going to be 3 feet, 3.5 feet off the property line. It's going to be 10 by 16, which I think is allowed. Yeah, and the reasons we wanted it in the side yard, it opens up a little more area in the back for kids to play, for one. And my neighbor behind me, Steve, if I were to put it in the backyard, it's kind of obstructing his view a little bit. Not only that, it would be interfering with mature trees and some of our, well, we have a really big flowering Chinese dogwood tree back there. It would interfere with that too. And that tree's been there an awful long time. But aside from that, yeah, I don't really want to mess with the trees too bad, because who wants to get rid of a nice mature tree in town? And as far as the property line, it's going to be 3.5 feet off the property line. So,
Okay. Do any of the committee members have any questions on the planning report? Does the secretary treasurer have any comments from staff?
Yes, and they're summarized in the planner's report.
Does the secretary treasurer have any written submissions on this application?
Yes, and they're summarized in the planner's report.
they're at work, so I couldn't even get my emails from the 11th to, well, when did I get my phone? I got it. I've had a week now. And as soon as I got that email, I made sure I left work a little bit early and picked up that sign. I didn't realize that the email had already been sent, so I do apologize for that.
Well, thanks for that explanation. Are there any persons present who were notified of this meeting and would like to comment on this application?
I was notified. The shed makes no difference.
So that's your comment? Okay.
It doesn't make any difference. The street goes to the east. Fence is there, you can't see on the street anyway.
Thank you for your comments. It's consideration of the decision of this committee. Any comments or questions? Do we need to recess or? No? Okay. I think we're.
So I have moved by Pemberton, seconded by Droulard, that the Council of the Municipality of Dutton Dunwich receives the report of the planner titled Application for Minor Variance MV 05/24, 1 Allen Court, Amanda Purdue, dated October 23rd, 2024 for information, and that the Committee of Adjustment for the Municipality of Dutton Dunwich approves minor variance application MV 05/24 for property located at 1 Allen Court in accordance with the site-specific decision sheet attached to the minutes of this meeting.
Okay.
All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you. Please be advised that the last day for appealing this decision is November 12th, 2024. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the committee in respect to this application, you must submit a written request to the Municipality of Dutton Dunwich Committee of Adjustment. If you are not the applicant, you should request a copy of the decision since it may be appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal by the applicant or another member of the public. The Committee of Adjustment meeting is now concluded. Okay. Thank you.
It was always that simple, eh?
Moved by Droulard,
Hang
seconded
around,
by
it only gets better.
Well, I know. I work with a guy that's telling you all about how much better it gets.
moved by Droulard, seconded by Dreyfus, that the meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to hear minor variance application file MV 05/24 filed by Amanda Purdue closes at 5:31 p.m. All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Droulard, seconded by Dreyfus, that the regular meeting reconvenes at 5:32 p.m. All in favor? And that's carried.
Okay. We have another planning item, and it's to do with additional residential units. Our planner, Tracy, do you have a report or wish to comment on that?
Just a brief comment through you, Mr. Mayor, to the members of council. So this is an information report only. There's no action required. I just wanted to give you a summary of what may be impacting additional residential units, or ARU for short. It's mainly focusing in on changes under the Planning Act through the Ontario regulations on ARUs in urban areas. It does make it very clear that the rural areas and those that are on partial services are at your discretion. The Ontario regulation is making some suggestions about angular planes, lot coverage, floor space. And as you recall, Council just finished a housekeeping amendment, and the last day of appeals is not until even October 30th. So what will happen is the comments are open in case council does have any concerns until October 23rd in the ERO. And then after the province gives the last and final reading and royal assent on the Ontario regulation, then administration is going to come back to you with a more detailed report, exactly what's going to be needed to be changed in our zoning bylaw in order to comply with these. A lot of them are as of right, and they tell us that we, cannot regulate minimum lot size, and we cannot regulate lot coverage. So I just wanted to kind of give you the heads up that it's coming, and we'll work closer with council at a later date with it knowing exactly what we'll have to change. So happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you for that, Tracy. Any questions on that one? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Love.
I guess my concern is if, I guess we could send some comments in if we're opposed to having all those things taken away from our responsibility. And I guess, we've in the past have saw some small lots that are created that do create some problems with drainage and other things. And I'm concerned that if we don't have the ability to put that in our zoning bylaw, we have no control over that. So.
Any comment, Tracy?
Yeah, so on behalf of council, we can put in a comment for you on the ERO before the deadline, and we will let the ministry know that you have some concerns.
Okay, thank you. Council have any other comments on that? Okay, thank you, Tracy. We are moving on to Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority. They have a draft preliminary watershed-based resource management strategy.
We have a resolution for Tracy's
Oh,
report.
sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Clerk Carroll, please.
Moved by Dreyfus, seconded by Loveland, that the Council of the Municipality of Dutton Dunwich receives a report of the planner titled Planning Act, OReg 299/37, additional residential units dated October 23rd, 2024 for information. All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you, Clerk Tara, for keeping me in line. I'm not going to go through that spiel again. Valerie is with us.
Don't blame you.
The floor is yours, Valerie. We have received your report.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Do you have the PowerPoint presentation that I sent? Can you bring that up?
I do. I sure can.
Thank you. So can I say good evening, everyone. Mark sends his regrets for not being able to make it to tonight's meeting, but personal situation has kind of laid him out. So I'm hoping I can whip through this in about 10 minutes, faster than Mark, I hope. So I'm here to discuss the Lower Thames Valley's watershed-based resource management strategy. It is a mouthful, which was one of 6 reports that was required under the Ontario Regulation 686/21, mandatory programs and services that the province required all conservation authorities to undertake. Next slide. Can you go to the next slide? Oh, am I frozen?
She's working on it, Valerie. There
Oh,
we go.
okay, there we go. Okay, so the strategic plan results were determined by a keep it simple process. And we came up with the following 5 rules, so to speak, in order to create a plan that's strategic, not operational, a plan that keeps in mind our statutory mandate, a plan that has ease of use and won't be shelved due to being too large or complicated to wade through, and a plan that has actionable items, not generalities, and a plan that has confidence of our key stakeholders. Next slide. So instead of doing both a strategic plan and a watershed-based resource management strategy, we combined both processes into one document, giving more depth to the strategic process that we had already started working in on. Next slide. So CAs are mandated under Ontario Regulation 686/21 to deal with natural hazards, CA-owned conservation areas, drinking water source protection under the Clean Water Act, and the Provincial Water Quality Monitoring Network and Provincial Groundwater Monitoring Network as prescribed by regulation. This could also include other programs if directed by our member municipalities through an agreement. Next slide. So all 10 of our member municipalities have signed MOUs supporting all of our programs and services that we offer as outlined under Appendix A of that MOU agreement, which is absolutely amazing. Not all CAs were able to do that. It's amazing to think that, some municipalities and CAs, butt heads. Like, we've never been in that category. I don't think we've had amazing relationships with all our members. Next slide. So the elements of the plan include our foundational statements, such as our vision, mission, and core values, what needs to be done, and how we get it done. Next slide. So our vision is for a balanced and healthy watershed. Next. Our mission statement is leading by example in environmental conservation and partnership with our community members. And next. Our core values are respect, integrity, commitment, objectivity, and collaboration. Now, these are the same statements that we had in our first strategic plan. Staff reviewed them, we picked through them, and we landed right back on the same ones because they spoke to everyone in the room. Next slide. So there are 5 strategic areas of focus, which we broke up into 2 components: watershed management and items that fell under organizational areas. So under the watershed management areas, we have healthy climate resilient watersheds, supporting sustainable growth and connecting people to nature. And under the organizational areas, we have partner of choice and organizational excellence. Next slide. So under each of these 5 areas, we determined what programs went into which of the boxes, such as steward and agricultural programs, etc., under the healthy and climate resilient watersheds, planning regulations, flood forecasting, low water under supporting sustainable growth, conservation areas, education and outreach under connecting people to nature, with our partner of choice and organizational excellence spanning all of our resource management areas. Next slide. So as part of the process of generating the strategy, we relied on the shared waters approach recommendations from the Deshkan-Zivi report that was generated through the Clearwater Revival Group, existing strategic planning documents, and inputs from our watershed residents and member municipalities. Next slide. I am not going to read these all to you, but we ended up with the following 17 objections out of this process. You can find these within our watershed strategy, which is on our website under our consultation tab. So next slide. So as a result of responses received, we had such things as a need to create a climate action plan for the authority to deal with potential future impacts to our conservation areas and the infrastructure within those areas. Continuing our stewardship programs to increase a biodiverse landscape that would also have a bonus ability to deal with a changing climate. Continuation of our provincial groundwater monitoring network and a provincial water quality monitoring network programs, and reduce phosphorus within the watershed and ultimately the Great Lakes. Next slide. So the next step is figuring out how we achieve these desired outcomes. So next slide. So going back to those 5 initiatives under the healthy and climate resilient watersheds, we have the existing programs that we provide to community members and our member municipalities. So such things as our stewardship programs, the water festivals that we host in Chatham-Kent and participate in Elgin, our water monitoring programs and phosphorus programs. So we assigned, where they were, how often we would look at them, and where they would fit into under our strategic process. Next slide. Then there's the potential new and expansion of existing programs under this category that we are looking forward to, such as the Climate Action Plan, integrated watershed monitoring, an invasive species program, such as helping municipalities deal with frag issues and drainage ditches, etc. An expansion of the phosphorus program, which we recently got an amazing federal grant for further phosphorus reduction programs throughout the entire watershed, which was absolutely amazing. And out of all the CAs that were there, we actually took the largest chunk of that grant that was being handed out. So kudos to our staff for being able to, write an excellent report that got that attention drawn to us for the bigger pot. Next slide. So under the second focus area, supporting sustainable growth, we have existing programs such as flood forecasting, low water response, our planning and regulations review processes, etc. Next slide. So for new and expanded programs under this initiative, we are looking at a floodplain mapping and risk assessment strategy. We've started in on that with some grant money, actually just doing water depths through the Thames in certain locations where we've got missing gaps, doing watershed monitoring program and ice management plan, which is another document that's required under 68621, working on new development policies, operational plans for our flood control structures, which we currently have operational policies for each of those structures, but this broader document will pull everything into one larger document. And then working on the climate action plan. Next slide. For our third focus area, connecting people to nature, we have our existing vast array of stewardship programs that are available across the watershed now, our outreach and education programs, and our active conservation areas. Next slide. For new and expanding programs in this area, we are looking to generate a land strategy, which is another requirement under 686, undertake a natural heritage strategy, and we are also looking to generate a strategic plan for both the Scanado Village and the CM Wilson Learning Center. Next slide. Under Focus Area 4, Partner of Choice, we are continuing with our customer service program, our stewardship awards to watershed residents, and our financial reporting to our member municipalities, which is provided to our board member at each meeting, and also available through our meeting agendas and minutes page on our website. Next slide. And I do apologize because this slide is supposed to say new and expanded programs. We just forgot a title there. Under this area, we are looking to expand on our Indigenous training program and a new communications and outreach strategy. A while back, we did have staff do Indigenous training program for 2-3 days, but a lot of staff have left, so we need to look back into that to get the newer staff back into that process. Next slide. And lastly, under Focus Area 5, Organizational Excellence, we currently have regular HR committee meetings, monthly staff meetings, build team environment, strengthen staff stability, and improve internal communications. Next slide. For new and expanded programs, we are going to be undertaking a salary review in 2025, which was approved by the board of directors, as we lost roughly 1/3 of our staff in 2023 due to wages not being competitive. And we will also be updating our hiring procedures and undertaking an asset management plan, which is a huge undertaking. If I'm assuming you have been through this process, and which will be finalized at the end of this year as part of the 686 requirements as well. Next slide. And thank you.
Well, thank you, Valerie. A lot going on at the Conservation Authority.
Definitely.
Yeah. Does council have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Loveland.
No questions, but a couple comments. Just want council to be fully aware that this new regulation has really put a strain on staff at the Conservation Authority trying to get all this work done. So I think kudos to them for the staff to get that done. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, and Valerie mentioned it a bit, is the phosphorus reduction grant. I think that if my memory serves me right, that's a $13 million grant over 4 years.
It is.
So there'll be some programs that will be available to local farmers as well. So
Yes. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you, Ken. It's amazing. We've already started hiring staff. So we've got a communications individual and an ag rep already started. So they're just starting to figure out the program. So hopefully we're going to be doing some outreach shortly for getting these programs out into our watershed and on the ground.
$13 million. Congratulations.
Yes, no kidding. Yeah, we definitely pulled in the pot. The other CAs didn't get anything near that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's your relationship with all the municipalities, I think, does you well in these types of things. Is you're not controversial, you just get the job done.
Yes, well, we hope so anyways. We're a keep it simple kind of people here, I think.
Yep. Okay. Anything further from council? Thank you, Valerie.
Oh, you're
for your
welcome. Thank you.
report.
Yep.
Okay. Is there, Clerk Tara, is Dylan specific time or does it matter? Are they ready? Are they coming or online?
Jason Johnson.
Okay. Jason, we're a little ahead of schedule here. Are you ready to begin?
Yeah, I think so. I believe, can you hear me okay, Mike? Yeah.
Yep, I think
Okay.
everybody can hear you. So if you're good to go, we'll start you early.
Okay. Would it be best for me to walk everybody through the application, I guess, like page by page, or I was gonna show a couple of maps as well that we've prepared, maybe if that would be helpful.
Well, I think it would drag on too long, page for
Okay.
page, if you could.
Yeah, I think if I can show a couple of maps, am I able to share my screen, Tara? Or Tracy, am I allowed to do that?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. So I basically just want to point out, you can see this my screen now there?
Yep.
Okay,
We're
so I
good.
basically wanted to point out, I know there's a lot of colors here, but essentially if you were to if you just focus on all of the purple colors, these we had a review with staff as we were going through the funding and the design and review of the collection system, and we kind of created this as like these were the lands that were desired to be included, sort of for the ultimate future upgrade. And we were running into some issues because we were coming up with some massive flows, and what we determined is everything that's currently in the purple, it was not considered in the EA, and it's actually about 112 hectares. So it's actually very significant. And so what we're proposing, so now I've switched to this. So I've just overlain two colors. This is a second map. So what we're proposing is this grant would cover the upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant and the new pump station #1, and it would cover everything which is in the yellow in this map, which we're calling phase 1. So obviously within this revised kind of phase 1, there's a number of what was shown in purple previously. And so this would yield about an additional 830 units. And so that would be the initial phase where pump station 7 up towards the top of the page is still pumping towards the south, and everything is operating as per normal. Everything gets down here to the corner or the bottom left, pump station 1, and to the treatment plant. So the last map I want to show you is, and so what we're proposing is this here is likely what we're going to propose as your sort of I guess phase 1, but that's also going to allow for future growth because we've looked at the current growth rate over the last 5 years of the municipality, and it appears that it's a little over 2%. And if we were to include all those purple areas and design the plant for full build out of that, even if it was in 20 years, we then realized that that would have to be a growth rate that's 20 times the city of London or something. You know what I mean? Like it's a massive area. So even if you think about phase 1 allowing an additional 830 units, I mean, if you multiply that by 3, that's roughly another 2,400 people, and the current population of Dutton is 1,400. So that gives you a sense of even phase 1 would provide a significant number of units. So I think it's better to consider like the number of units that you're going to get as opposed to time, and that that the time part would fluctuate a little bit, but based on the growth we're seeing, this upgrade would last you in like for quite some time. And then the last map I'm going to show you here is you'll notice here that there was before. Oh, sorry. You noticed before that there was a little bit of yellow from phase 1, and that's now gone. What's happened is this pump station 7, which pumps down this way before, we suggest that would be modified to pump over to this side. And then this new development, whenever that would go, it would require a pump station. And essentially this whole area to the north would be your second phase. But in our mind, the most of the development and interest in the town seems to be in this yellow area, and pump station 7 is already kind of able to service this little bit here in the interim, as I've shown here on this map. So like it's already servicing the commercial area, and so that's fine as is. I guess the point that I wanted to make is previously what we were showing in the EA is a potential phase 2 is maybe a little bit unrealistic just based on historic growth rates. And so I think what we're showing here in the yellow is sort of what you want to build towards, and we're going to gear the application towards, makes more sense. And so I believe from the previous application, it's about $1 million less. So I think the subtotal prior to contingency is, I think, 24.5 million. And previously it was 25.5. It was $1 million more. And just checking our numbers and everything, we had slightly less units in the previous application. So yeah. So I guess, is there any questions? Any questions regarding the application or any of these maps, I guess?
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. I'm looking for the units in this application. Am I missing something? I'm having trouble.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I'll let me just find what page that's on.
Who saw it?
Page 16.
Page 16?
Yeah.
Yeah, page 15 of 17, I think it's on. So we've got the under 2026. So assuming that this upgrade was completed by 2026, that would allow for potential of an additional 830 units.
Okay. And what's the 192 beside it?
My understanding is that within phase 1, this came from the previous application, Tracy, but my understanding is that this is the number of units that are currently available to be serviced within phase 1, that are kind of more or less like shovel ready, I guess.
Yeah, the application is broken down between shovel ready and potential. So yeah. So the shovel ready would be the ones we've already basically approved, like Sandy's, and yeah. So.
Okay. Okay. Questions? Go ahead, Ken.
Just a couple of quick questions. This capacity is based on to put it in simple English so people like me can understand it. It's based on a design of about 1.25 cubic meter per household. Is that kind of about right?
It's 3 people per single family home, and your design standards, it's 365 liters per person per day. We are recommending, Ken, I am going to be submitting something to Tracy. We have reached out and have got a quote to do some flow monitoring. So we would like to flow monitor there's 4 pipes going into pump station number 1. So we'd like to flow monitor that before we finalize like the detailed design, and obviously the detail, and not of both pump station 1 and the wastewater treatment plant, because there is, in all likelihood, my gut tells me that like once we do say 3 months of monitoring, that 365 liters per capita per day is likely a bit high. So my guess is that number will come down a little bit, which is a good thing because we know some of your gravity sewers are over capacity in the collection system, and also like a a slightly smaller flow will allow us to still design the ultimate pump station #1, but it maybe doesn't have to be quite as large.
So yeah, that makes sense to me. I think from my understanding, the average household is probably putting in about 0.6 cubic meters a day. So having double the capacity in the design is not a bad thing. But as we expand out, we may find we do have a little bit more capacity down the road. And you answered my second question about doing the flow monitoring. I guess the third question is, we've noticed, of course, the last month's been really dry. We're down to 80% of capacity, which is a good thing. Do you think there's some benefit in doing some smoke testing in the old part of town to see if we have some eave troughs hooked in? Because it seems that even a little rain gets water to the plant really quickly. So I'm not sure. I thought maybe originally a lot of it was coming from sump pumps, but I'm kind of wondering now if it isn't eave troughs hooked in. And they're probably a lot easier to find through smoke testing.
Yeah, I&I is tough, Ken. I mean, I have experience with smoke testing, and it's kind of like, it's like 50-50. 50% you'll spend your money and get nothing. Maybe 50% you'll see some smoke come out of the eaves troughs. I know we did a detailed review of the CCTV videos because that was provided by Tracy previously, and there wasn't a lot of concern, I guess, into bleeders or infiltration that we could see. Ideally, we'd be able to do flow monitoring, and be able to catch a wet weather event. Obviously, it's touch and go this time of the year. I mean, we'll try to get the monitors installed as quickly as possible, but I would suggest we probably start with the flow monitoring. Cross our fingers and toes, we'll catch a wet weather event, and then basically, if we see that wet weather event very much correlated to the flow in the sanitary sewer, that's when that's probably more of an indicator that there's an I&I issue than from what we see in the CCTV, because the CCTV could have been from, who knows, the dog days of summer, right? We don't really know when it seemed really dry. But I find with I&I, it's good to start at the downstream end, do some flow monitoring, see if it correlates to wet weather events, and then at least start to pinpoint areas. Maybe it's, maybe, as you said, maybe it's a very small part of the existing town that is the issue, but I think it would be advisable to do some initial flow monitoring to see what we're dealing with, and then kind of go from there, I guess.
Okay, thanks, Jason.
No problem.
Okay, Councillor Pemberton.
Yeah, just a couple questions too. The total number of 830 and the 192. So I guess I just want to confirm it's a total of 830, not 830 plus 192.
That's right. Because the 192 are basic. Essentially, we're saying are shovel ready, but you don't have the capacity in the pump station or the plant to allow that to go. So once that upgrade was to go, those 192 units could proceed, and then the balance of the 830, those would be lands that currently aren't developed but are blocks of land within that phase 1 map we were showing, that if a developer paid for it, they could go. Yeah.
I guess my follow-up question to that is, we do have my understanding, some developers that are kind of sitting in the wings waiting to develop. Should those maybe be considered closer to shovel ready or do they have to specifically be an infill lot or already on a plan of subdivision?
They haven't even done their plans of subdivision yet. So
Okay.
Because we haven't been letting them. So.
No, and
Yeah.
I'm just trying to add more to the shovel.
No, and I think that's what makes them shovel ready. And we actually have site plan applications where we already have those other.
And I guess my next question is probably more for Tracy than anybody else's. on here, we have developers expect the project to proceed based on the EA and won't be happy if there are delays. Have we reached out to the developers maybe to get some letters of support?
Yeah, got those. Yeah.
And we've
Yep.
got those? Okay, awesome, perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, it looks like this application's pretty well complete. Jason, is that a fair
Yep.
statement?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay,
There's just
And,
Tracy just has to attach like some of the background, like the letters from the developers and the the ESR from the EA. There's a few documents that have to get attached when it gets submitted, but yeah, more or less, I think the application is complete.
okay, in the past, it came down to bang for the buck. How many houses can we get built? And I'm speaking for the provincial government, for how many millions of dollars we hand out. I think we're a little less on the housing number in this application than we were in the first one. Is that true? Yeah.
1100.
But-
Yeah, I think it was 1100 and about 1100 previously. Now it's 830.
Yeah, and we're asking for a little less money.
That's right.
Okay, and it's an estimate. It's a ballpark figure that you've put down here.
The 24.5 million.
Yes,
Is that-
I mean,
that-
the numbers
well,
are,
it's ballpark, but it's it's high level based on our experience. Like that's mostly derived from the EA, those costs.
okay, all right, so you're confident in these numbers?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. It's up to council, and we're all in this thing together. So a lot of work's been done on this. A lot of work was done on the first application. A lot of work. And it was explained to me that it came down to bang for the buck. And that's what the minister told me. And a lot of small municipalities like us were left out of that first draw. That was explained to me. And they are going to recognize that in this next round. I've been assured of that by Minister Flack and Minister Surma. They recognize the problem. So I'm a little more confident this time around. Anything further, Jason?
I can tell you, Mike, that from the feedback on the first application, the application scored well on technical merit for water systems, project readiness, and critical health and safety criteria. However, it scored lower on financial capacity and need and technical merit for housing impact. I'm guessing on the housing impact, like you said, this isn't the GTA where you can get way more units per dollar spent. And I don't know what to say on the what do you call it, the financial capacity and need. I don't even know that there's really anything the municipality can do much differently. That's mostly a part that like Tracy fills in, and it is, I think, Tracy, it is what it is, right? More or less. And so
The province knows exactly the financial position we're in, Jason. You can't hide anything from them. So they
exactly. And I
recognize.
don't think you're alone. So I mean, I don't know. I think the province, what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, like, even if we're able to provide 75% funding, if you can't come up with the 25%, why give you the 75 to begin with, right? So that's sort of their standpoint. But I certainly recognize you're in a, like many other small municipalities, in a really tough spot.
Yeah. We can finance our portion of this with connection fees. We've got them in line in order to do that. So I'm hoping that works for us.
What and what might be good, Mr. Mayor and Tracy, is like following the submission of this application. I mean, it may be wise for you to schedule a meeting with the developers that you are aware that currently own land within the area we're showing as phase one, and make them aware that you're looking for funding to basically tackle an upgrade at the plant and the pump station and whatnot that would allow sanitary servicing of their blocks. And, you know, the best, you know, I think it would be advisable to make them aware of that, because obviously if they start building, I think we figured out, Tracy, it was something like 8 million and change based on your bylaw for connection fees that you would generate. So
Yeah, this year, if I could get 653 homes, I think, I'd have like over $8 million. So,
right,
and then,
right.
I mean, that capacity charge gets, COLA every year, so it's getting indexed, so it's gonna be more every year, but I can't collect it till I get some shovels in the ground, so, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
That
mean, I heard
discussion-
the bank lowered interest rates 0.5% today. So, you know, these are all good signs in terms of, you know, we're hopefully turning a corner in terms of housing in the market. So, you know, it might be good to let developers know kind of where you're at and what you're trying to do here.
I think that discussion could also include some money up front from the developers.
For
I
sure.
mean, that's not a new concept.
Not at all. Not at all. And if honestly, if it maybe came down to that, and that, you know, the province was saying we're concerned about your piece of the puzzle, maybe that's something where you work together with the developers on a front ending agreement now as part of this, you know, this $24.5 million project, saying, okay, let's figure out how much each of you are going to contribute based on the size of your developments. And you know, there could be such an agreement where they front end some of that and maybe are credited DCs, but whatever it is, you know, like I said, that's fairly common to allow major infrastructure to go in, you know, ahead of time.
Okay. Councillor Pemberton has a question, Jason.
Yeah,
Sure.
Jason, just one more question. Sorry. The original application had 1,100 and something units being created from what you just said, and we're down to 830 now. Deputy Mayor Loveland asked the question at the beginning with lower flows, and you kind of commented that there may be lower flows. Are we able to maybe modify this to go anticipating those lower flows so that we can increase the number of units created? Because I think one of the comments on the first application was we weren't creating enough units. So I think the higher we can get those units, or even bring more lands in that were left out of this, because realistically, if we don't do this and push that first domino over, the next ones aren't going to fall either. So without this, the next ones won't get done. So I guess my only comment or concern is there a way or a possibility to increase those units available as high as we can for the money we're asking? And, you know, I guess I'm concerned that we asked for 1,100, or we said 1,100 units the first time, and now we've reduced it to 890, and we're only asking for a slight bit less. And their comment was we weren't creating enough housing units. So I'm a little concerned with that.
Yeah. My response, I guess, to that would be, I think the bigger factor in the number of units is not the per capita flow that we're considering. I mean, the MECP recommends a range from 250 to 450, and in your design manual, it has 365, and so that's what I'm saying. Let's double check that with flow monitoring. But I think the bigger impact was the additional area that we were considering over the EA. So 112 hectares is fairly significant. So that extra build out was going to provide you know, more units, but it wasn't really realistic based on like the current growth rate, if you know what I mean. So like, even though we were showing more units, you're not gonna, based on your historical growth, like you're not gonna achieve that type of build out. So even if we said like there's more units, then that means that you've got to then upgrade the plant to account for those units. And we're kind of thinking right now that that was going to be many, many, many years, like too many years of growth based on your historic growth. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess does that make sense, Counselor? Or?
So Jason, what you're saying is because the flows aren't getting to the plant properly, we had the wrong flows when we did our first application because we were going on the EA. And when we started digging into this, we realized that if the flows were getting to the plant properly and we weren't using our underground as storage for sanitary, we would have never said that we could have that many houses on with those two phases. So we've realigned the phases to match. But I think what Councillor Pemberton is saying is, could we maybe add 145 and 145 to like 2028 and 2029 to get ourselves back up to the 1100? And by that point, we could maybe upgrade a pumping station again for $100,000 or something along those lines. I think that's what all we're asking is, can we actually put, I know it might not actually be able to get that kind of capacity,
I think the main issue, Tracy, is that we discovered that the EA numbers were incorrect because they were based on the meter at the plant, which is downstream of the undersized kind of pump station and force main. And so once we started doing this desktop study and kind of looking at everything again, we didn't realize, one, that we had added 112 more hectares of land on top of what the EA was considering. And then also, like, based on our desktop study, the flows that would ultimately be getting to the plant, say what we were previously showing in phase 2, which would be 1,100 units, would have been significantly more. And so, like, the plant upgrade would also be significantly more costly, and like even the options in the EA, we probably would have considered different options. But this is where I'm saying that's not practical, because based on that line of thinking, you could be building a plant that might receive 25% of its capacity for the next 75 years, if you know what I mean. And we've seen that before. We've seen, it's not unheard of that a mechanical treatment plant gets built out for what you think is like a 30-year kind of build out, and the development isn't realized, and you've got, a way oversized plant, which there's other issues to deal with there as well.
I think one of the problems is we're playing catch up, like the 192 units.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're behind. Just before we got started, we're behind. And that's the issue we're faced with here. I have one question on the status of part of the application. You've got different items here. Environmental assessment, 95% done.
Yes.
Conceptual engineering, 25% done. Basic engineering, 10%, and detailed engineering, 0. I think, is that going to hurt us in any way? I think they're looking for stuff that's ready to go.
Yeah. What page is that on, Mr. Mayor? Sorry?
It's on page 14.
14.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe. Let me just get to that spot. We already tried to make it sound a little bit better than the previous application. I think before we had 100 for the EA and zero for everything else. And we now know that the EA is not complete. We have to fix some of the stuff, and we're close, but then we have to fix a few things, and then resubmit our notice of completion to the MECP. I think based on I said 25% on conceptual engineering, because I think the desktop study and the creation of the design sheet and the drainage area plan of your existing system you know, all of that analysis. You know, we've looked at your CCTV, like, so I mean,
We haven't done any actual engineering.
yeah, we haven't done any actual engineering. Like, I mean, I could maybe bump the conceptual and basic up a little bit, but not a lot, Mike. I just don't feel comfortable. Like I said, we're sort of figuring out, backtracking a little bit on all these flow numbers, making sure we got our ducks in a row before we can jump into the detailed design of the pump station. So, I mean, I'm happy to put this to 35 and 15, maybe.
Jason, your name's all over this thing, so don't do anything that you're not comfortable with.
No, I know. I'm happy with like I said, I'm good with 35 and 15. It's just I don't think we can. I can't, yeah, being ethical, I can't say that we've started the detailed engineering when we just haven't. So
Okay, fair enough. Councillor Dreyfus.
I think we've got to keep in mind. So we reduced it to 24 million on 890 units. So we're already, the application looks better because we're down to 24,000 per unit. So the cost, and also I think I agree with Jason on this. It wasn't the application in essence, it was the fact that our serviceability. So if we've reduced the amount, the requested amount, and the size of our ask, we're already 6, 8, 9,000, 10,000 under in our complete ask. So, you know, compared to 1,100 homes at $33 million is what we've asked for, which is 30,000 per unit. We've already reduced that initial cost. So if you look at it in that perspective, it does look a little better to start. And all of a sudden it makes sense when it comes to connection charges, right? So I think everything it's starting to jive a little bit better with the overall plan. So I'm pretty confident with what we have here as being the best we can come up with, because we have to service the debt too. That's the bottom line. So, and if that's what the province is looking at,
that's what our financial capacity.
That's our
does, 'cause
capacity.
we,
So.
we're running out of debt. So.
Just a comment in that regard, I guess. I know there's nothing on this application that really gets into that detail, but would it be worthwhile to put a little summary page with it about our connection charges? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because, you know, like when I did the first one, I'm like, there's no place here to show our financial anything, right? So, yeah, so we've been looking at extra things we can add this time and make it so that they know we do have a plan going forward to pay for it, right? So, yeah.
We also have MPP Flack in our corner, and I'm confident that we'll get him the application. He's asked for it. And he has a pretty good relationship with the Premier. He has a very good relationship with Minister Surma. And I'm sure Dutton Dunwich will be spoke of when the decisions come down. So I'm confident this time, Jason. I feel very good about this one.
My fingers are crossed for the municipality for sure.
Okay, anything further on this? I want to make sure council's all on board. Like I said, we're all in this together. And I think this is our best shot. I see heads nodding, so we'll proceed. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jason.
Okay.
And whoever you got with you there.
Yeah, I got Vander. Say hi.
Thank you, Vander. We
Okay.
couldn't see you.
Okay, thanks. Have a good evening.
Yep, bye now.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Does anybody need a break? Okay, we'll take 5. Right. Correspondence. We have the Town of Coburg involuntary care for individuals with severe mental health addictions issues. Anybody wish to comment on that correspondence? It's a challenge everywhere, but resolution, please, Tara.
Moved by Loveland, seconded by Pemberton, that the Council of the Municipality of Dutton Dunwich supports the resolution from the Town of Coburg urging the Province of Ontario to implement similar measures to ensure that individuals with severe mental health and addictions issues in Ontario have access to secure involuntary care when necessary, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Rob Flack, MPP, Karen Vecchio, MP, and the Town of Coburg. All in favor? And that's carried.
The second item is Good Roads, establishment of an Ontario Rural Road Safety Program. Everybody saw that correspondence. Any comments? That was in front of county yesterday too, and I think there's a lot of merit to it. Tara, please.
Moved by Pemberton, seconded by Drouillard, whereas official statistics from the Government of Ontario confirm that rural roads are inherently more dangerous than other roads, and whereas despite only having 17% of the population, 55% of the road fatalities occur on rural roads, and whereas rural, northern, and remote municipalities are fiscally strained by maintaining already strained rural strained healthcare system, and whereas roadway collisions and associated lawsuits are significant factors in runaway municipal insurance premiums, preventing crashes can have a significant impact in improving municipal risk profiles. Therefore, be it resolved that the municipality of Dutton Dunwich requests that the Government of Ontario take action to implement the Rural Roads Safety Program that Good Roads has committed to lead. It will allow Ontario's rural municipalities to make the critical investments needed to reduce the high number of people being killed and seriously injured in Ontario's rural roads. And further, that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Rob Flack, MPP, Karen Vecchio, MP, Premier Doug Ford, Honorable Prabmeet Sakaria, Minister of Transportation, Honorable Kinga Surma, Minister of Infrastructure, Honorable Rob Flack, Minister of Agriculture, Honorable Lisa Thompson, Minister of Rural Affairs, Honorable Trevor Jones, Associate Minister of Emergency Preparedness and Response, and Honorable Sylvia Jones, Minister of Health and Good Roads. All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The Town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, Ontario Deposit Return Program. It was correspondence in your package. Any questions, comments? Tara, please.
Moved by Drouillard, seconded by Dreyfus, that the Council of the Municipality of Dutton Dunwich supports correspondence from the Town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, endorsing the Ontario Deposit Return Program to include non-alcoholic beverage containers, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Rob Flack, MPP, Karen Vecchio, MP, and the Town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury. All in favor? And that's carried.
Okay. And the Town of Tillsonburg, continued funding support for Southwest Community Transit. Anyone wish to comment on that? Tara, please.
Moved by Dreyfus, seconded by Loveland, that the Council of the Municipality of Dutton Dunwich supports the resolution from the Town of Tillsonburg urging the provincial government to continue funding Southwest Community Transit beyond March 2025 to ensure the ongoing viability of this essential service from small urban and rural Ontario, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Rob Flack, MPP, Karen Vecchio, MP, and the Town of Tillsonburg. All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Loveland, seconded by Pemberton, that relevant correspondence was reviewed. All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you. Excuse me. 2 items on the consent agenda. AMO policy update introduce legislation governing bicycle lanes and Lower Thames fall newsletter. Anyone wish to comment on any of those? Seeing nothing, for Tara, please.
Moved by Pemberton, seconded by Drulard, that the items on the consent agenda be approved. All in favor? And that's carried.
Okay. The clerk's report. I'll just hand it over to you, Clerk Tara.
This is just kind of starting to plan ahead for all of our council meetings in 2025. And staff can start working on holiday preparations or vacation time, just better planning. Any questions?
Councillor Pemberton.
Yeah, I guess my only question is the council meetings for budget, do you want to just try and schedule them in as special meetings then, or
That's usually
just
what
when
we do.
needed, or
Yeah.
did we want to actually schedule some now so we had an idea?
Sure, I can add that in.
Well,
Or we can
need
have,
to actually start working on the budget. Might.
Oh, well,
Do you want water, wastewater for your water budget? Yeah, just kidding.
I think we can accommodate that with a special meeting, or
yeah, I'm fine.
if
If we're doing it, you know, even if it was put January this or that as needed for budget or whatever, it was just a thought, but
Like they're in between, but-
it's not a
Yeah.
big deal. We can do it as special meetings. It was just a question.
yeah, special meetings don't require as much notice, whereas these are just regular meetings. So at any time we can announce that we're going to have this special meetings. I think it's 48 hours notice. I have to double check, but
That's fine. It was just a question.
okay. Anything further from council? Resolution, please.
moved by Drulard, seconded by Dreyfus, that the council of the municipality of Dutton Dunwich receives the report of the clerk titled 2025 council meeting schedule dated October 23rd, 2024 for information, and that the following be the council meeting schedule for 2025. January 15th and 29th, 2025, February 12th and 26th, 2025, March 12th and 26th, 2025, April 9th and 23rd, 2025, May 14th and 28th, 2025, June 11th and 25th, 2025, July 16th, 2025 at 4 p.m., August 13th, 2025 at 4 p.m., September 10th and 24th at 2025, October 8th and 22nd, 2025, November 12th and 26th, 2025, and December 10th, 2025. All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you. And we have the CAO Treasurer's Report. Go ahead, Tracy.
Through your mayor hats. So speaking of budget, this is our first step in the budget process. For the budget policy, I put the insert in there. So at the low end of 75 of the consumer price index at the end of September to the high of 125. So at the end of September 2024, CPI was 1.6. So I've laid out the increases. 75% is 1.2, 100 is 1.6, and 125 is 2. Staff is suggesting the 1.6, and we're just here to get council's thoughts, approval. Any questions?
Anything from council? I was surprised that it came in at 1.6. It was lower than I thought it might have, but
Yeah, I believe it was 2.4 in August. So
Yeah.
yeah, the year over year for September was 1.6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so we'll put that number in for budget purposes.
1.6.
Ken, you have a comment?
I was just going to say, I support that.
Yeah.
That's got to keep the staff
Well, yeah.
competitive.
Resolution, please, Tara.
Moved by Dreyfus, seconded by Loveland, that the council of the municipality of Dutton Dunwich receives the report of the CAO treasurer titled Employee 2025 Wage COLA Adjustment dated October 23rd, 2024 for information, and that council pre-approved the COLA of 1.6% based on 100% of September 2024 CPI for the 2025 budget, and it be applied to employee wages effective January 1 for the 2025 calendar year. All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you. We have other staff reports, the Cultural Heritage Committee Annual Report, and is our planner Tracy still with us?
She's her only.
Yes,
she's the
I'm
only-
here in case council has any questions.
Okay, we all received the report in our agenda package, so anything further, Tracy, to that report this time?
So perhaps I'll start and let Henry jump in. So one of
Yep.
the concerns that the Heritage Committee has is their vision and objectives. So one of the rules that they established right from the beginning was they were always going to make sure that they had the property owner's permission in order to designate. You don't need their permission, you just need it to be on the register. So what they're looking for is some clarification on council, if that's still the way you'd like to proceed, because they are starting to see some challenges where there are some properties that have value for designation, but they don't have the property owner support. And some are at risk of being demolished. The other component that the Heritage Committee would like some direction from council is even, and maybe Henry can help me on this one, whether we should even have a heritage committee or not. There's a lot of challenges. We've got a lot of resignations from the committee only because a lot of people are already spread too thin, and the volunteers tend to be very busy volunteering for other organizations. So we've just recently lost another member, and we have one member who's sick, so we currently don't have quorum. So before the committee goes out and starts marketing for more members, they just want to kind of circle back with council. You know, are you happy with the Heritage Committee? Do you want the Heritage Committee just to find some new members, or is it something to consider where perhaps we no longer want a committee? So Henry, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yes, I think you've touched on the key points that need to be directive from council. I guess the first and foremost thing we need to know from you is, from council in general, is do you wish us to recruit or attempt to recruit new members, as Tracy indicated? And then the major, you know, again, as Tracy indicated, is the committee would like to know typical heritage committees designate properties without owner consent. Is this municipality in favor of that, or would this council prefer we have owner's consent prior to designation and come to some form of agreement? Those are the two sticky points at this point in time. Having said that, we have one property now that was before land division today. We actually, as a committee, deferred it to land division. It will come back to our committee or to council with a severance application with a property that's on the heritage registry. So we're at a loss right now. We don't have quorum. We don't have enough people. So I think the feeling within the existing members of the committee is we need direction. So.
Okay. You can't even do your job as originally set up.
No, our hands are tied at the moment.
Yeah.
At this point in time, and we've lost some really good people.
Yeah.
You know, Lawrence Grant was stellar, and Angela did a lot of research, and she's not well right now. Not sure exactly how long that's going to live, but Lawrence won't be back because he's retired. So that's where the committee's at this point in time. So.
Okay. We had a great run as a heritage committee, got a lot of work done, and we had a lot of terrific members dedicated to heritage in this municipality. And we've lost one. We've retired one, one's ill. We did go down the recruitment path before with not much success. So what's council's thoughts on this one? I have a vested interest. I was the council member when we formed this thing. Where do we go? We have to give them some direction.
Yeah, so I guess my comment on the two directions, I don't believe we should designate properties without owner consent. I've worked for a municipality that did that, and it creates quite a lot of problems from my experience. I understand the desire for it, and sometimes it should be, but I also see the other side that it can create some issues for that property owner when it comes to insurance and liabilities and renovations and things of that nature. So I don't think I would support adding it to the designation with owner consent. As for recruitment, I guess I wasn't really aware that they had tried to recruit before and weren't very successful with it. My suggestion would be we would just try and recruit again. And if we're not successful, make a decision from there.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything else?
I agree with Councillor Pemberton in both issues, I think.
And I think the property in question, that horse has left the barn. You know, what could we implement now on that property?
And I agree. And it's with every concerned citizen, but all I will say is that there were 3 people that were petitioners at the land division meeting today. So that does indicate that there is interest, but we're still dealing with a landowner or property owner that has plans for a property, and I'm of the opinion that personally, and this is just my personal opinion, that it's always better to have owner consent, and that's how I would personally approach it. But as much as a history buff that I am, I think we don't want to be adversarial in my approach. But I still feel the Heritage Committee has value. There is alternatives that we did discuss in our meeting that we can ask archives to research for us. We even have a staff member here that is really good at research. So I think we have options going forward. I'm always concerned about going to the public in general at large, because we really want people on the committee that are history orientated and care about preserving stories, the history, telling the story of the community. So that's my belief in the approach. So I think that's the direction the committee's looking for us. So
Can we identify people in our community that we think would be good committee members? Do you have anybody top of mind?
I have a couple people in mind. But I think it's worth talking to them for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
That approach makes a lot of sense to me.
So
a targeted approach, and I'm going to concur with the property owner's consent. This municipality has not offered any tax advantage to having a heritage property. We know the stories about insurance. They're very real. We can get into renovation costs and all that stuff, and it is somewhat of a financial burden to the owners of a heritage property. There's no denying that. So do you have enough direction, what you've heard tonight?
yeah, I have enough direction. Are we satisfied, Tracy, with the direction?
Yeah, we just wanted to take the opportunity with the annual report to circle back with council on some of these sort of questions that the Heritage Committee has been working on. So we'll report back to the Heritage Committee when we meet next, and we'll just get started on that recruitment, and we'll continue on getting property permission. Now, with respect to that property that we mentioned that is potentially going to be demolished, that was at Land Division today, there is a process. So they do need to come to council for permission to be removed from the registry. So you'll have an opportunity to assess that based on the Heritage Committee's recommendation. So there's still work to be done on that.
Yeah, and that's what the registry affords us. We get that second chance.
Correct.
So there was a lot of good work done on that.
A lot
that
of
I don't
good
want to
work.
throw away.
Yep.
So thank you, Tracy, for hanging around and for your report. A lot of work yet to be done, and a lot of great work has been done by that committee.
Thanks. And for the record, it wasn't my report. It was Randy's report. So she is the resource for Heritage.
I'll just add one comment before we leave this. I think it'd be advisable to put that in the terms of reference that council would prefer to have owner's consent, because I don't think we officially have that in our terms of reference. That would eliminate a lot of trouble going forward, I think.
Okay, duly noted. Okay, I think we're prepared for resolution. Tara, please.
Moved by Loveland, seconded by Pemberton, that the Council of the Municipality of Dutton Dunwich receives the report from the Archival Records and Clerk's Assistant titled Cultural Heritage Committee Annual Report 2024, dated October 23rd, 2024 for information, and that Council directs the Cultural Heritage Committee as to how the committee should proceed going forward. All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you. And we have item B is the Fairview Cemetery Scattering Garden Report. And this was a report from Randy as well. She's been hard at work. Is there any comments or questions, or does staff wish to speak to that one at all? Pretty straightforward.
The cost was okay with me.
I was,
Go ahead.
I was just going to make one comment, and I support the idea. I guess my concern is if we're going to make one, let's make it big enough that we're not back next year enlarging it. So
So with the scattering grounds, it's assumed that you would just be putting them on top of each other. So I believe she put in there that it's going to be about 4 lots. So that ends up being 6 by 16. So it's rather large in comparison to the sizes that you would see in London or the bigger cities. But we have the space there because those lots are unusable because they're typically wet. So you can't bury people there. So it'd be a good use of the land.
Okay. St. Peter's put in a scattering ground in similar size to this one.
What happens if they don't get along in life and they end up on top of each other?
That's for them to figure out.
they'll never know.
Go ahead, Tara, please.
Moved by Pemberton, seconded by Drouillard, that the Council of the Municipality of Dutton Dunwich receives the report of the Archival Records and Clerk's Assistant titled Fairview Cemetery Scattering Garden Report, dated October 23rd, 2024 for information, and that Council approves the installation of a scattering garden in Fairview Cemetery. All in favor? And that's carried.
Okay, thank you. Any unfinished business? Yeah, it's coming. Yeah. And under new business,
That would be the resolution for the
yeah,
Lions Club?
Tara has a resolution prepared for the Lions.
Moved by Loveland, seconded by Pemberton, whereas the Dutton and District Nonprofit Housing has connection fees of approximately $263,000 for wastewater and $16,000 for water. And whereas the Dutton and District Nonprofit Housing is restricted as to when funds are released for the project. Now therefore, the Council of the Municipality of Dutton Dunwich approves deferring the first half of the fees until the first draw of their mortgage and the second half of the fees until first occupancy. All in favor? And that's carried.
Okay, thank you. Any announcements?
I got a couple.
Okay.
Yesterday I met with City of St. Thomas, South Holt, Aqua regarding the power code attaching to the secondary water. So the secondary water has to shut down for the power code and for a chunk of on South Edgeworth. It's going to be about a 24-hour shutdown. So obviously the Ford Tower will run dry. It won't be able to. So they're looking for us to backfeed. We do have a fire contingency plan with our shared fire chief. Megan from Aqua is looking into that problem that Tim always had a problem with, that we are not a water distributor. So she's looking into that, but she thinks because we have these cross municipal agreements, we might be okay. So I will be bringing a report back to council when dates are set and we actually know the game plan, but I just wanted to give you a heads up in case you hear something out in the public about this happening. Second thing I want to announce is you all know that Mayor Henson met with Minister Jones at AMO to discuss the doctor situation. I received an email tonight, and she's quite interested in what happened to us, and she wants some information, which I thought the mayor had already given her, but I am going to supply her again with the timeline, the name of the family health team, the individuals I dealt with, and then she's going to follow up on it because she's quite concerned about the tax rate here and the medical being on it. So that's kind of good news. I don't know if anything will come out of it, but she did take your delegation seriously, so which is a good thing. So I think that's all I've got. So.
Council have any announcements? No. No proposed bylaws. So Clerk Tara, we are ready for closed. Resolution, please.
Moved by Droulard, seconded by Dreyfus, that the council for the municipality of Dutton Dunwich now moves into a session of the meeting that shall be closed to the public at 6:54 p.m. in accordance with section 2392 of the Municipal Act SO 2001, chapter 25, for discussion of the following matters. A, labor relations or employee negotiations, section 2392D of the Municipal Act for the Medical Center. All in favor? And that's carried. All right. Moved by Loveland, seconded by Pemberton, that bylaw 2024-47, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the municipal council of the municipality of Dutton Dunwich, be read a first, second, and third time and passed. All in favor? And that's carried.
Okay. We have the next meetings, November 13 and 27. And the one we're waiting for, Clerk Tara, please. Resolution.
Moved by Pemberton, seconded by Droulard, that the meeting of the council of the municipality of Dutton Dunwich closes at 7:15 p.m. All in favor? And that's carried.
Let me go behind.